Well, hello, Jonathan. How are things on the West Coast?
Hey Herb, it's actually a beautiful day in California, which is not always the case given the smoke, but at the moment it's nice. Good to
Yeah,
see you.
it's always a joy to see you, and I hope George is well also.
He is.
Um, so, thank you for letting me talk to you about a shared love of ours, which is Bach. Because you're so far away, I always love it when you can participate with us. You've played Continuo with us a couple times, and and you've played solos for us on the organ in some of our series, and and it's clear to me that we share a lot of things. One of which is similar career paths, as well as both starting Bach groups, right?
Yeah, so I think you started yours the same time I did, but American Box Soloists I co-founded in 1989.
I
Is
started
that?
in '88, and you know
Oh,
how I
yeah,
remember
okay,
that?
there we are. Say,
I
roughly.
remember that because it was the year my daughter was born.
Okay, great. Yeah, so the that the impetus for that was much like the impetus for yours is I really wanted to do cantatas. There's this huge wealth of musical literature that rarely gets heard. Everybody knows the B minor mass perhaps and the Brandenburg concertos and some of the greatest hits kind of thing, but this 250 some spectacular cantatas that are relatively unknown. And so that was actually part of my mission was to get that out there.
Yeah, according to the death notice in the newspaper in Leipzig, he there would have been 300, which means we've lost. Uh, it's a terrible thing to think about how many we may have lost. But the
Yeah.
thing that I've always believed, despite the unbelievable power of the organ works and the joy of the orchestral works, the cantatas really was his life's work. I think, and the making of sacred music. And I think you and I share this idea that the way he went about composing cantatas was more had an extra level, if you will, from the other instrumental pieces. So all the wonderful things with architecture and fugues and there's so many fabulous compositional devices he had. He added on top of that word painting and doctrine of affection ideas. Um, some people listening to us may know that word painting is music sounds like what the the music means. So the famous one is Handel's "All We Like Sheep Have Gone Astray." We have turned for the word "turn." The music spins. For "Gone Astray," there's two little lines that go apart like little sheep. And everyone to his own way. It's a stubborn repeat of one note. That kind of stuff in the music, it's just lovely, lovely music. You don't realize that unless you. So we start with a little exploration of that in the cantata we're going to do before we perform it.
But Bach, in addition to his cleverness of craftsmanship and doctrine of affections and how that all plays together, adds a new dimension, which is why he was dubbed the fifth evangelist, which is this theological piece, and how he was able to convey something of great theological import. It's interesting to us because 18th century Leipzig was the seat of fundamentalism, the pietistic movement,
Artistic movement, yeah.
and on the surface of things, if you just look at some of these texts from Bach, they can seem a little strange to 21st century ears, but when you hear them in the context of what he's doing with the affect, it all makes total sense because then he brings in a level of joy and of intellect merged together that seem to clarify what might otherwise come across as simplistic theology to us.
You know, my one of my absolute favorite examples is one my teacher Helmut Rilling mentioned to me once. Um, and of course, Rilling was the first person in the world to record the complete choral music of Bach, and a great, great luminary Bach scholar. And talking about the B minor mass, which you mentioned, he was talking about the aria, which is a duet, Et in Unum. And the two, God the Father and in the Creed, God the Father and God the Son are the same yet different yet the same. And Rilling said to me, you know, if you were a preacher and you had to explain that in a sermon, it might take many words. This is a German translating into English. It would take many words, he said. And even then, it may not be clear. He said Bach did it in one measure. And so the two oboe start like this. The first one goes ba, 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 ba. And the second one goes ba, ba, da, da. The same notes, same rhythm, same pitches, yet different. And of course, that permeates that aria. Well, again, if that's a lovely thing to know when you hear it, in my opinion. And there's so many details like that. Wow, you know.
Yeah, and there's some. I was surprised to learn, but of course it makes sense that when Bach auditioned for a job, the town council spent 3 full days grilling him on his theology, because in those days they really got how what the musician teaches through music is as profound or maybe more profound than what's coming out of the pulpit. And so they better make sure that this person's on board with their particular
Right.
theological bent.
Right. We've both had church jobs. We've both been in Episcopal cathedrals and other churches. And I've always, whether asked or not, I've always volunteered. The most important thing I think that I do, more or less, is play the hymns in a way to encourage congregational singing, because that's the whole body singing texts that often, good hymns, of course, have wonderful theological underpinnings.
Yeah, it's that's the most consistent moment of getting goosebumps when I play is accompanying hymns.
Right.
And that's exactly the reason, because it's the perfect wed of music and theology into one affect that speaks deeper than either.
That said, you know, you have what, 40 CDs you've recorded, and every year until COVID, you know, you do major tours in Europe and so on. And I want to just sort of publicly shout out the last time you played with us. You played the Bach Passacaglia and Fugue in C minor, which is one of the big monumental works. And I swear to goodness, when it was over, I don't think we've had very enthusiastic crowds. I mean, we've done, you know, say a B minor mass and gotten sustained ovations, and all. It's heartwarming. But you finished that piece and people clapped till their hands were bleeding. and I had one member of my choir. She's a professor of philosophy, you know, and just smart as can be. She said she was so moved by that music she couldn't physically move. She couldn't stand up.
Wow, that's powerful. When I approached the Passacaglia, in spite of the fact that we're pretty sure Bach wrote it when he was in his early 20s, which the depth of perception of humanity in it is so profound that it's almost like I bow to the piece before I start and when I finish it. And in India, they have musicians play particular pieces of music not based on their skill level, but on the depth of their spirituality. So you wouldn't attempt to play some particular raga unless you were of a particular level of development spiritually. And I feel like that's the case with the Bach Passacaglia, that this is, if you don't approach it from the standpoint of opening up the heavens, of stretching out, reaching out into the whole cosmos, then you're missing the point of it, or at least the impact, the potential impact.
Right, and I think some of the big late Bach choral works are the same way. One shouldn't do the St. John Passion as a 19-year-old. I mean, as a conductor. I don't care what a genius you are. You haven't lived enough. Those works are such treasures, and you know they're hard. And you and I were talking very briefly once before. I'd love for you to talk about this, in that we only have about 1 or 2 minutes left. But why is it that Bach he was born in 1685, right? No electricity, no internet, no the noise of today, not present. You know, so many things are so much faster in our world, and yet his music profoundly impacts people today. What is it about how it impacts us as people, both spiritually and maybe physiologically? I know you have a project where you're working on some of those concepts.
Yeah, that's really a great question, and it's something that I've gone back to over and over and over again, literally all my life. My Bach's biography was actually the first biography I read when I was in high school, and the why it is that this music speaks across the ages, I think we're starting to understand. He was gifted, or he would probably say he was graced with a unique spot in music history, which allows the brain, the neuroscience of the neurophysiology of the brain to connect on a very profound level. So neuroscientists today will tell us that when Bach's music is played, the brain plays it partly backwards, which was, we refer to things that we've already heard a minute ago, or maybe twice as fast or twice as slow, and we piece it together like a jigsaw puzzle, which is also, I think, a reason why Bach doesn't work as background music. It engages the brain so intensely.
Right.
It's not about just emotions. Feeling good is all well and good. With music, especially true in the 19th century, it's about the emotional impact. With Bach, it's about spirit, which is different from emotion. And I'm always moved by how Bach pulls you in with the complexity and it's like he holds on to you until it gets to the end.
Yeah, right, exactly. So I don't think it'll ever disappear, but I think it does explain in our fast-paced world with so many distractions and so many things bombarding us, why perhaps it's not a little more widely present than it is. So the two of us are doing our little bit, you know, to make folks realize that this is a precious, precious treasure and an amazing part of our cultural and just our civilization heritage. It's just astonishing. So listen, I love your playing so much. Will you play a piece for us, and what would it be if you were to pick one?
Well, I was thinking something that wouldn't be too long, and the G minor fugue from the Fantasy and Fugue is a really exciting subject and counter subject, and I would love to play that for you. And
I love that dancey opening melody.
yeah, Yum, ba-da-da-da-dum, bum, ba-da-da-da-dum. Yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, thank you for chatting, and now here we go. Once again, the piece is,
The G minor fugue of Bach.
and I think early in his days at Leipzig. Is that right?
I'm not sure. It isn't. It was probably composed in Leipzig, but I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, whenever he composed it, it's a gem. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This
All
is
right.
fun.
Bye.